We're going to get started here. Unless there's no objections.
Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Philipstown will hold a public hearing on the 7th day of October, 2021 at 7 o'clock at Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, on a proposed local law of the year 2021 entitled, "A Local Law to Opt Out of the New York State Cannabis Law, Chapter 7A of the Consolidated Laws of the State of New York, in regard to retail sales and in regard to establishments for on-site consumption. The purpose of this local law is to promote the public health, safety, and welfare by opting out of the New York State cannabis legalization legislation in regard to retail sales and in regard to establishments for on-site consumption. A copy of the proposed local law is on file in the office of the town clerk and available for inspection by interested persons during town clerk business hours. The town board will at the above date, time, and place hear all persons interested in the subject matter hereof. Persons may appear in person or by agent. All written communications addressed to the board must be received by the board at or prior to the public hearing. By order of the town board, Town of Philipstown, Tara Percocello, town clerk, dated September 22nd, 2021.
Right, I believe this is the fourth time that we've held a public forum where we've spoken about this. I know there are mixed feelings on the board about this. What's really driving our decision is the fact that we need to make a decision now, and in order to opt out. We just do not have the time nor energy nor resource to get this in line in time for this year. This is not going to happen. We have too many other priorities. If it's going to come down to, infrastructure, time spent on that, time spent on food insecurity, because in this town, I think a lot of people don't realize that there are people who are food insecure. There are children going to bed hungry in this town tonight, and that is not hyperbole. That's a fact. I've seen it firsthand. So if I'm going to spend time on something and money, it's going to be those issues first. It's not to say that we don't understand the desire to opt in here. There is just not enough time for us to get it together, to get all the administrative actions we would have to take in order to properly administer this. Again, it's budget season. We have a big infrastructure project going at the highway garage. We have all the regular things we're doing. We have food insecurity. We have any number of issues that we're dealing with that will absolutely take priority over this issue. That's not to say that we're denying the public the right to go ahead anytime they want, bring it up to permissive referendum, and get it on a ballot. I don't know if the board wants to make any comments before we open it to the public.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Judy.
Ladies before John.
Thank you. I just want to say the board, too, is exercising its leadership in getting all the comments together from the community, including speaking to parents, community leaders, school leaders, addicts, mental health experts. So I've certainly done my due diligence in one time to continue to do that and speak to all of the community and not just a few who might have an interest in the cannabis business or an interest in the tax revenue that might come from it. It's a much larger question for our community, and we do have to, as leaders of our community and leaders of Philipstown, do our due diligence.
John?
I've been taught well for the 12 years that I've been here to listen to the public and listen to the experts that come in and speak to us. We had Danielle Pack McCarthy come in here, who is the director and operator of the Behavioral Hub for the town of Philipstown that we support. And Danielle's recommendation was to opt out, to not encourage the use of cannabis or the sale of cannabis or the consumption. I have no support for any type of smoking. I'm certainly not going to say I'm here to support the use of cannabis in any form. So to me, it's not a matter of time. I will continue to be in opposition to it being sold, distributed, and or consumed in the town of Philipstown. So I'm going with the people that I feel are the experts, which I would certainly say Danielle qualifies for that position. So that's my feeling, and it'll take quite a bit of convincing to change my mind. So.
Can we make comments after the public hearing as well, or is this?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Bob, anything now? Or you...
Not really, just like, this is, I'm kind of on the fence on this thing, as well. I mean, it's something, you listen to Danielle, we support her wholeheartedly and everything like that. And, if people talk about tax revenue and so forth like that, it's gonna help a little bit, but it's not gonna be tremendous amount of money that we could see for tax revenues bringing into town of Philipstown, to be quite honest. So, right now, I'm still open to hear what people have to say before I make a decision on this. I mean, the thing here is that, the thing about this is you can smoke this or consume it any place you smoke cigarettes, from my understanding. That's the law, right? That's the thing. So you can go out in the street if you're smoking a cigarette, because no one's gonna stop you if you're smoking cannabis on the street as well. So this law is basically just not opting out, so we won't have any retail sales or so forth like that, or a place that people can go inside and consume it. So the opting out right now is, like I said, I'm most likely in favor of that.
All right, with that, we'll open up to the public. Would anyone like to step up to the microphone and speak? Yes, sir. And please identify yourself when you step up.
Will do. Good evening, everyone. Should I? Is it
Yeah,
okay
you
if
can
I
drop
take
the
this?
mask, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anthony Leese. As you may recall from when I spoke at the workshop a couple of months ago, I'm a full-time resident of Garrison. I moved here in December 2017. I am also a local small business owner running my own law practice out of Garrison. Richard, to connect the dots, I'm the person you emailed this morning in response to the public comment I submitted. To be honest, I was first shocked and then deeply disappointed that an elected official would speak to a constituent that way. Your email was aggressive and offensive. I will not waste anyone's time reading the email out loud, but if permitted, I have copies of the email here and would like to submit it to the town board to be made part of the public record of the hearing. Is that permitted?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll submit it at the end. Richard made clear in his email and tonight just now again that he felt the town had more important things to discuss and focus on, but I have spent a lot of time and money on this matter and believe this issue affects our entire community, and I'm hoping you'll just indulge me in a few short points in support of opting in. Philipstown should be promoting the establishment of more businesses to provide goods and services to the residents of Philipstown. With all other surrounding municipalities poised to opt in, by Philipstown opting out, we are sending a signal to our residents that they should go elsewhere for the things that they need or want. From my perspective, and many others I've spoken to in the community, this appears to be a trend in our town. The town, through zoning, will maintain complete control over the size of businesses and where they can open, and rather than opting out and not doing the legwork, it should appoint a committee to examine these issues and be sure we have a reasoned approach in place that will maintain the quaint and historic nature of our town as we await regulations from the state. There is no risk of quote-unquote big box cannabis coming to Philipstown. The sale and consumption has been legalized statewide, the sale and consumption of cannabis. If your reasoning for opting out is to discourage cannabis use, opting out will not accomplish that. Philipstown residents will simply go to Peekskill, Fishkill, or Beacon for their cannabis and bring it back home. In contradiction to what I'm hearing here tonight, the legal sale of cannabis has been shown in study after study to reduce underage cannabis use, not only because it dries up the illegal market, but because it is so highly regulated. To purchase cannabis, IDs must be scanned and the purchase is entered into a statewide database. This is not a matter of a shop owner being able to turn a blind eye to a fake ID, as is the case in a liquor store. There are those of us, myself included, and I'm not hiding that want to open cannabis businesses in Philipstown. There are also local farmers who want to grow cannabis for sale. Opting in will promote small business growth, support local farmers, and increase tax revenues, and in my opinion, any increase in tax revenues is a good thing. Cannabis sales have been occurring in Great Barrington, Massachusetts for years at this point, And I spoke with Eric Arnold, and together we connected the board with the government of Great Barrington to discuss these issues. Great Barrington is a vibrant town, and at the workshop, many compared it as a model for our town in the future. And it offers a variety of goods and services to its residents, and is a great model for what we could be in Philipstown. The community supports opting in. This is not only anecdotal from the many people I've spoke to in community organizing over the last several months, but the Highlands Current conducted an Instagram poll several months ago which showed overwhelming support. If the town does opt out until more information is available and opts in later, as the board has suggested, we will have wasted so much time that anyone wanting to open a cannabis business in Philipstown will already have looked to the neighboring towns. There are also a limited number of licenses, so none may be left at that point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes.
Hi there. My name is Tara Vamos. I live at 6 Rock Street in Cold Spring, and I think that we absolutely should go forward with allowing cannabis sales in Philipstown. I am one of, I'm sure, many people in town who travel to Great Barrington occasionally to buy marijuana. It's a beautiful, cute town. Nothing hideous has happened to it after starting sales of marijuana, nor has that happened in Northampton, nor in multiple other towns, including in Colorado, where there's actually a long history to look at. The numbers back up what the gentleman earlier was saying. It does not increase children's consumption of cannabis. It does not decrease home values. We stand to earn tax dollars. I'm sincerely sorry that I wasn't here early enough to hear what all of you had to say. I did see, Richard, your letter to the editor that was stating that it seemed dubious that we would get the tax money back from the county. And although I think that that's possibly a legit concern, and I mean, I'm not, like, it sounds like it is a legit concern because you have it, and I value your opinion on that very thoroughly. I think we're in a better position to claim that tax money if we actually have a dispensary to claim it from, even if the rollout doesn't go smoothly initially. As the person right before me said, if we do not allow dispensaries to open here, those businesses will be established in Beacon, in Fishkill. People get into their habits and go to where they're going to go to shop. And I don't see why we would be pushing people out of town to go shopping for something they're going to purchase. As someone who doesn't drink and does smoke pot, I would like to be able to purchase my adult use item of choice in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is the first public hearing, then Upland Drive will be after this. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Eric Arnold, a resident of Garrison, and I've been volunteering for the past couple of years on the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. Hi, Nat. And one of the specific focuses I've undertaken is economic development as part of my volunteering on that committee. And one of the things we've been focusing on is examining the ways that local entrepreneurs can be supported and encouraged to open new businesses in our town. I'm not here tonight speaking in official capacity for Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. I want that to be very clear. I'm only speaking as an informed resident based on the things that I learned from the couple of years that I've been working on that team. And that's why I connected you guys with the selectmen in Great Barrington, as you might recall. And I think other people here, myself included, would love to learn what you guys learned from that conversation. But setting that aside for a moment, I do want to raise a few points that are specific to the law, as well as the proposed law, as well as the comprehensive plan. Section 1 of the law, as I read it, states that the purpose of the local law is to promote the public health, safety, and welfare by opting out of retail and consumption sales. In my opinion, this is antithetical to what that law states, because by opting out, we'd be permitting the local black market, which sells to minors and other at-risk individuals, to remain alive and thriving in Philipstown. We might even be nourishing that black market here in Philipstown, because they will be able to undercut on price based on what anybody else will be able to get through legal means. Second, the comprehensive plan advocates for the support of increased local agriculture. Opting out will likely, and that's a likely, I don't have 100% assurance on that, but it will likely prevent some locals with viable farmland or greenhouses to earn extra income by growing and selling cannabis to the legal market to local dispensaries. Third, through my research and work with the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee, it became clear that we as a community have a long history of telling local entrepreneurs, take your business elsewhere. And most everyone we know goes out to dinner in Beacon. We do our shopping there. We do our shopping in Peekskill and Fishkill. And, you know, by opting out, we'd be once again telling local entrepreneurs and residents, spend your money anywhere but here. And now, Richard, I've read some of your comments in the paper, and while I disagree with some of them and how they were presented, I think you're correct about something really important, which is that the state law was rushed. It did leave several policy, regulatory, and logistical questions up in the air. But in my opinion, this is not a reason to kick the can down the road, paved or dirt, as we like in this town. You know, every town around us, as the two people before me have pointed out, is currently planning their zoning and regulatory framework in anticipation of this law taking effect. And I believe that we should be doing the same. Let's use this time wisely rather than not use it at all. Now, if you recall, people complained when a vape shop opened on Main Street and it closed because it didn't have the support of the local community. Nobody shopped there. Now, will a cannabis business thrive here? I have no idea. I have no idea. By most indications, I think probably one could open and do well here, but I just don't know. But we should let a local entrepreneur try, or entrepreneurs try. You know, let them succeed or fail on their own merits under a sensible framework that you, a group of local residents and local business people create. My opinion is that if we're truly concerned about the public health, safety, and well-being of the community, we shouldn't be opting out. We should be doing the work of determining what's acceptable and what isn't, and take this rare opportunity to change the general message that we constantly send from please take your business anywhere but Philipstown to please start your business in Philipstown. That should be our message for cannabis, restaurants, shops, everyone who's a local entrepreneur. And now, I just want to make a quick closing note. While some of us might agree or disagree on this issue, a message to Richard. I just do want to thank you because I think you have dedicated an incredible amount of time and service to the community over the last 8 years, is it, I believe?
20.
20. So it's really incredible. You have a really tough job. I really appreciate it. Honestly, it's probably only fitting that you end your distinguished term of service with another tough job here. And so it wouldn't be Philipstown otherwise. I think this town is a much better place than it was before you took office here and all the time that you've been on the board while I've been here. But I really do hope that you take the voices of the community on this issue as seriously and with all the thoughtfulness that you have shown on so many other issues in the past. So, and to the rest of the board, thank you as well.
Thank you. The one point that I would dispute is the fact that we are not friendly to businesses. You would need to cite a specific instance in which a business approached this town to start and was turned away. This can't be just, you know, a blanket statement with no facts to support it. I can't remember a business that came before the planning board, the zoning board, anywhere that was turned away. It's just simply not true. You know, businesses come and if you have a plan and you go through the process, in all likelihood, you'll be approved. I cannot remember a single business application that has come before this town that was appropriate for this town, not, you know, barring something like a blacktop recycling plant, which we did turn down. But other than that, there's nothing that comes to mind.
No, nothing. I've been on the board 7 years now, and like do the planning board, and No one's ever been rejected these last 7 or 8 years.
So the facts are that during,
We make modifications, obviously,
yes,
and that's what the planning board does, but no one's ever been rejected.
yeah, and one of the reasons this town is so unique in the Hudson Valley and that people like it so much is because we've been good stewards of what happens in this town. Other towns like Fishkill, not so much, and you see what's happened there. We're not going to let that happen here, but again, as Bob said, he attends every planning board meeting. In the past 7 years, no business has been turned down, and to my knowledge prior to that, nothing else, barring the blacktop plant, recycling plant. So I just do want to straighten that out. We're not a business unfriendly community. I don't know where people get that perception, but the facts do not back that up. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello, Richard.
Hey.
Hi. My name is Courtney Gordon-Tennant. I'm a resident of Cold Spring, and I wanted to express my support for not opting into it. As a veteran, I constantly get drug tested, and I'm not really in favor of prevalent use in the community. And then personally, I've also had lost 2 family members to marijuana. So I express my support for not opting in.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Colin Wright. I am a resident of Garrison. I've lived here since 2017, and I manage the Cold Spring Farmers Market. I'm also on the Putnam County Farm Conservation Board. And as an advocate for local food, I really appreciate your commitment to providing local food. I also see a synergistic relationship between growing cannabis and growing other food crops. I think that it would be unwise to opt out at this point, because I do believe that there will be a limited amount of licenses available. And I think that as a local grower and someone who owns a farm, I would consider growing cannabis as well as other crops, because a lot of stuff doesn't make money if you're selling stuff, and I can make money on my farm potentially by growing cannabis and supplementing my income by growing other food and even distributing it locally to places in need. So as a cannabis smoker, as an advocate, I think that it would be in the benefit of Philipstown to opt in.
I want to be clear about this too. We're not opting out of cannabis as an ag product. We're opting out of dispensaries, if that comes about. So we're not telling people, farmers, that they're not going to be able to grow it. That's going to be regulated by New York State, not by the town of Philipstown. So I don't want to have that get out saying, look, you're not promoting local agriculture, which we absolutely do. Look, I funded the farm market's rent, as anyone, through my paycheck from the town. So I'm a big supporter of the farm market and of ag, but we don't have a hand in telling people they can or cannot grow cannabis on their property. This is solely about dispensaries. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Alan Spiegel. I've lived in Cold Spring since 2003, and I'd like to express my support for opting in for the cannabis dispensaries and other establishments. People who've spoken in support of it up to now have been quite elegant. I won't repeat their points, but I support them. Other than the point about business friendliness, I really don't, I'm not really informed on. I do feel that there's enough time between now and when the first dispensary would be able to open that the town could develop the rules and zoning and et cetera that is needed. But if you wait and opt out, then you would be putting any businesses that wanted to go into that field at a disadvantage, both competitively because they'd be late to market, and as people mentioned, because they might not be any licenses left. And I'd like to build on one point from the previous speaker about health and safety. Anytime you're telling us we have to get in our car and drive somewhere to buy something, you're putting our health at a bigger risk than most other things I can think of, because that's one of the easiest ways to die around here is, in an auto accident. So I thank you for your considerations, and hope you hear the overwhelming support for the cannabis stores.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My name is Karen Bergstein. I'm a resident of Garrison for 6 weeks. I moved from Rockland County. I'm also a nurse midwife, and I have an interest in cannabis. I know a lot about what medical cannabis can do for people's lives, turns around people's lives. I've seen women who were addicted to much more dangerous medications come off by using cannabis. And I prepared something and I left it at work, I'm sorry. I think that we should opt in for dispensaries. If we don't, people are just gonna travel. You know that Beacon and Peekskill and Fishkill will be opening dispensaries, and they're just gonna travel there, and the revenue and the businesses will be elsewhere, and people will travel in. They're also very, very well regulated, so it would be difficult for adolescents, people underage, to purchase, or impossible for them to purchase. And every corner there's liquor. You can go into any supermarket or gas station and buy a 6-pack of beer, and that's more dangerous than cannabis medically.
Right, we have no purview as to the sale of liquor in New York State. So the other thing that's sort of confusing me is saying, well, other towns are going to open them. Other towns are going to open them regardless of what Philipstown does. That's a given.
There's other towns in Putnam that have already opted out as well.
Right, but regardless, they're going to open up in places when New York State gets their act together and gets around to really coming up with the regulations and administration procedures. The thing is, I feel like it's a false premise to say, well, if other businesses get the jump on this, then Philipstown's going to be behind. Well, if Philipstown doesn't have one, and we go through the permissive referendum procedure, and the public supports it, it's still going to be unique to Philipstown. So this argument that, well, there's one in Beacon, there's one in Peekskill, we don't want to drive there, the one in Philipstown is going to be behind the 8 ball, it doesn't hold water with me. It's sort of a false premise, that argument. But thank you.
Thank you. You know, I would like to also dispute, I've heard several times this won't be marketed to our children. I think we heard that from the vape companies, and then they developed flavored vapes and all kinds of devices that were marketed to our children. So we have to be careful when we say that. In Philipstown, we spend thousands of dollars funding an addiction resource coordinator position and the Philipstown hub, because there is a substance abuse problem in this town. So we really want to make sure our children don't have access. But I don't think it's true to say that they won't have access necessarily. So we really do have to think about that.
Yeah, and just to further that point, we're not going to deny anyone's legal right to consume cannabis. We don't have that authority, nor would we want that. Adults do what they do. And your point is well taken about alcohol. Alcohol has destroyed a lot more lives than cannabis ever will. But this is a big issue, and we don't feel equipped at this time to take it on. So, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Great Oaks, I live in Garrison. Mr. Shea, I appreciate some of your challenging tone through your letters back to the editor. I am surprised sometimes at how you play whack-a-mole with your constituents, but it does drive people to engage in the process, which is a lot better than sitting at home, so to that I am grateful. I want to touch on one topic because I similarly to Mr. Arnold, perception is reality, right? And it's great, for y'all to say, hey, we've never turned down a business. I talk to plenty of entrepreneurs who talk about their real struggles starting a business here. And it is fair to enforce standards, and it is fair to say, hey, we want businesses that represent the character of our town. I'm completely on board with that. But at the same time, there can be a perception that this is not a entrepreneurial friendly environment for people to work. And maybe there's a decision on what we want to do with that. Certainly the world has changed over the last couple of years in where people can do business and what they can do in your backyard. Like, that's a big deal. I work in the tech space. I work in tech. I know a lot of people who do work they work in marijuana. They're in the space. They work for retailers, work for software companies that work with it. The regulatory requirements that have to be in place to make sure that a child doesn't buy marijuana, to make sure that someone knows like where something is tracked, are massive and huge. I think you probably all know, I hope everyone here knows, it is draconian what happens to you if you sell to a kid in this state. Like, your business is gone. It is way more extreme than what happens if I walk into Yanatelli and let some 17-year-old buy a bottle of wine. It's a different animal, right? So that, I think, is something to call on. I also see that we talk a lot, like it's about health and safety, like the health and safety of our community. If you look at any study by any scientist, any group of researchers in the state of California, in the state of Colorado, in the state of Washington, well, first off, rates of youth consumption of marijuana have been going down since the 70s in this country. It is a reality that they have decreased. And you can't point to a study or to a collective body of knowledge that says that in any one of these states that have legalized, that they've seen a big surge in children doing marijuana. It's just not a thing. What you see in terms of violent crime is a reduction. What you see in terms of property crime, again, a reduction. And so I would just really hope that as we make our decisions, assuming that the decisions haven't already been made and that we're just going through this formality, I'm hoping that people have been open to actually doing the research, actually talking to people and actually seeing what it is, as opposed to just saying, hey, this is a controversial issue, let's punt, let's see what the people have to say, right? I think that's where we're headed anyway. My hope is that if we are headed toward what the people have to say, that maybe the discourse and the dialogue can be based more in fact and less in opinion. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just wanted to make a comment after hearing, what folks were going to come out and say. And I think, first of all of us on the board would definitely say thank you to everybody who comes out to a public hearing, especially on an issue like this, and expresses their opinion, because I think that it's an issue that people still don't feel fully comfortable talking about openly. So the thing I wanted to say, a few people mentioned, and this is just in response to some of the comments made, Eric Arnold made the point of connecting us with Great Barrington, and we participated in a phone call with an alderman in Great Barrington, Ed Abraham, who had been a part of Great Barrington starting a dispensary. It's a little bit of a different situation, but just a report back for the public. I mean, what Ed Abraham said, and obviously this all gets taken, every context is different, but Ed Abraham's report was that, while people were scared of an increase in youth smoking, an increase in crime, what Great Barrington saw, and that was from their perspective, was no youth increase. After they do surveys of local youth, no crime increase. But what he did say, and I think this is where it connects, and I'm still, like Bob, sorting out my thinking on this as well. What he did say is that you shouldn't think about a dispensary just as any other business. What he did say is that it's almost like a big box store in the amount of parking and traffic and vehicles it brings to a community. And so he said you really want to think about what the local zoning implications are, what the road implications are, and you need to think about that, because it's more like how communities plan for big box stores in terms of what it brings. And so, thinking through this decision that we all have to make, I mean, for me personally, I don't think it's about the idea of retail, is not about discouraging cannabis use, because we live in a different, New York State has legalized cannabis. It can be carried 3 ounces, it can be stored 5 pounds, it can be grown, and it can be smoked anywhere cigarettes can be smoked. Unlike alcohol, you can't take a beer onto the streets with you. So in some ways it's more liberal. So I don't think it's about that, but it is about how our community kind of plans for what is a new sort of development. And I also think that, the State Cannabis Control Board, which is going to regulate these things, and it seems like localities can't limit the number of locations, but that's still being played out. I don't think all of the Cannabis Control Board has been appointed, and it's a fairly long time lag in this. And like Richard said, it feels like a rush forward, especially when you consider the conversations about how you plan for this with local zoning. Even though that local zoning planning can be done at the same time, even if you don't opt out, which has been clarified. So, for me personally, still listening, still thinking it through. I think also, Cold Spring has put it on the referendum. So in November, we are going to hear how a big bulk of Philipstown feels about both retail and consumption. And I think something else we haven't talked about is that we're talking about 2 different things here: retail sites and consumption sites. And Great Barrington never dealt with consumption sites, and we're being asked to opt into both retail and consumption. And so I don't know, how people feel. I think those are 2 different beasts a little bit. But, that is up for people to decide, and it's moving forward quickly. But, I think that that a lot of us are still, or at least me personally, still thinking through all of the variables as it goes forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right. Anything else from the board?
Well, it's just great to see this turnout this evening. Thank you all for coming and for your testimony. And we are, as I said earlier, going to think this through and the implications for our town. But I really appreciate everyone who testified this evening.
Yeah, thank you for coming out, because, most of our board meetings, we don't have much action, so it's nice to see a lot of people here tonight, and I encourage people to come to board meetings more often, and if there's something on the agenda that you'd like to see, come to us and we'll talk to you, have a workshop, and discuss it.
Right, and Councilman Flaherty brings up a good point. Any person in the town of Philipstown can request a workshop with the town board on a Wednesday night on a topic. So it's not as if we're ever shutting anybody down. This board is as open as any town board in existence. And again, I just want to put the point out there. In New York State, this is a long way from getting up and running. New York State is not known for moving quickly on big decisions. So I wouldn't imagine that this year, possibly in 2023, you might start seeing this stuff from what I'm hearing. But right now, we have big issues we're dealing with. We're dealing with climate change, on a local level. So there are a lot of things that can take the town board's time and resources, and things that are going to have a much bigger impact than cannabis sales in Philipstown. Climate change being one of the large ones, food insecurity being another very large one. So we appreciate people coming out for this, but could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next public hearing.
Moving on to the next one.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the town board of the town of Philipstown on October 7th, 2021 at 7:15 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear comments for or against a proposed local law entitled "A Local Law to Add a New Section 175-18.2" entitled Upland Drive and Ridge Road Development Districts. A complete copy of the local law is available for inspection upon request sent to townclerk@philipstown.com. and by appointment in the town clerk's office at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, dated September 22nd, 2021, by order of the town board. Tara Perticello, town clerk.
Okay, this is an issue we've been dealing with for many years, and there's always been a concern in several areas in Continental Village of overdevelopment. The roads, I would say Upland Drive is probably the most challenging road in Philipstown. I don't know who could dispute it if you drive up there. So in order to respect property owners' rights, both people with existing homes, people with lots that are not developed, we'd like to develop this law and these new administrative actions to deal with the potential for future development, because we certainly don't want a developer coming in there, finding cheap lots and causing a lot of headaches for the existing families that live there already. Well, at the same time, we understand that people own property. They have rights to go along with that. But these roads are just, as I said, some of the most challenging in Philipstown. Upland Drive is a difficult road in the best of circumstances.
I wouldn't even consider it a road.
Right, more like a trail at the top, by the time you get to the top. Water is a big issue down there. We have very, very steep terrain. The road is substandard. It's not a town road, it's a private road. To get that road to town standards, I'm not even sure you could. So we certainly don't want to add to the headaches there. If someone's going to come in and develop, then we want to make sure that we have the tools to govern that development. Because there's a lot of vacant property down there, a lot of lots that may look cheap at first blush, but when you talk about developing them, they certainly wouldn't be. So with that, I'd like to open it up to the board first to see if anyone has any comments on this. Sure, go ahead.
After discussing it at length with the board and our town attorney, I think the key is if anybody is going to develop, and I support property owners' rights to develop their land, but it needs to be done in a safe manner. There needs to be safe access in and out for the residents, for the postman, for the fire department, for the ambulance, and for the rest of the people on the road, that their water's not coming down the hill, destroying the neighbor's lot. So I would encourage nobody to drive that road, but there is not really a road there. So I have a large truck, and I tried to go through with my own truck, and I was scared. So I would, discourage people from purchasing these lots, or do your homework. And this basically will protect us. If you're going to develop it, if you're going to build a house there, you're going to need to provide access in and out. So I think that's the key to it. So.
You get scared easy.
I do scare very easily.
Again, we've had workshops on this several times, again, so we've got a lot of input from the people who live down in that area as well. So again, we would take everyone's comments, digest them, and make decisions based on that.
All right, with that, I'd open it up to the public. Yes?
My name is Gabriel Corey. I live on the bottom of Upland Drive.
You're lucky.
Yeah. Oh, not so lucky. I get everyone's water. Anyway, I've been there for 40 years. I'm also a life member of the Continental Village Fire Department. And as you mentioned, this is not something new that we've been going through with the town. We've been trying to get the town to do something about that road for 40 years. And for 40 years, we've been told that you can't bring it up to town specs. So, my question is, number one, you guys were supposed to do a study. Was that ever done?
A study?
Yeah, there was supposed to be a study of Upland Drive.
When was that presented?
Last year?
I don't recall that, but
You know, there's a lot of talk that goes on. And
we've had our town engineer go down there and drive the road with council people.
All right. Number two, it's a private road right now.
Yes.
All right? There's a limit of how many houses you could have on a private road. Is that correct?
It's a little more complicated than limiting the number of houses. Has to do with frontage, has to do with acreage. So there's not, people think that, look, there's only 8 houses under the open development area laws. That's not true. It is not limited to.
Okay, all of a sudden it's not limited.
No, not all of a sudden.
Yeah,
It's
wait.
always been that way. There's been a misunderstanding.
There was a
over the
few
years.
years ago, let's see, That was right after Tom Monroe gave the building permit across the street. That was probably 15 years ago. Two developers wanted to build a house another 200 yards up the road. They were willing to put $100,000 each into the road, and they were turned down. What changed?
Nothing has changed. The law remains the same. The open development area laws have transformed into the new zoning, but there's nothing that's changed in the way land is developed and the roads developed in this town.
Really? And you're going to sell these parcels as buildable lots before there's a study done and before people know that they can sell these, they can build on these lots?
We're not guaranteeing anyone that they can build on a lot. This would be a caveat emptor moment where people certainly want to beware and be aware of the.
Have you read the proposed law?
Sorry?
Have you read the proposed law?
I read that you guys want to sell 24 parcels that, you guys don't own 24 parcels? Philipstown doesn't own 24 parcels?
We own 24 parcels. We cannot legally sell those parcels. They're called in rem property. They're
Okay,
taken in
so
lieu of
how many
taxes.
parcels are involved with Philipstown?
How many? What do you mean? How many
To
are
sell.
involved? We're not selling. We can't sell property.
You're not selling any
No.
of those? And neither is Putnam County?
We don't know that Putnam County is not selling them, but this law. Have you read the law?
No, I haven't. My wife read it.
Okay, so it would be a good idea to read the law to see the restrictive covenants that are going into this law.
But we were just notified about this meeting 2 days ago, right? Was this, I mean, you would think that the residents would be notified that there's going to be a meeting about Upland Drive?
The notices were sent out over a week ago. We've also been
Sent out to who?
To every resident that we have listed in our system.
Really?
Upland Drive, Ridge Road, and Cliffs.
I never got a notification maybe 2 days ago.
We
that they-
also scheduled this public hearing a month ago.
All right.
In the local paper, the PCNR, and it's notified on
So-
our website and on our bulletin board in the law.
Everybody who owns parcels on Upland Drive now is going to think that they can build, and who's going to pay for the?
I think that if you took a look at the local law, you would feel differently. That's not the thrust of this law. The thrust of this law is to set standards for development. We cannot tell a property owner in New York State, you have no right to develop your property. What we can do is set standards for those properties.
And are those standards going to be the normal standards, or are you going to?
No, that is why we're creating an Upland Drive district, so we can set special standards for that area.
So the special standards are going to include a steeper grade?
No, this is not true. These
No?
standards,
Then how are you going to connect one side to the other? Because I was told that that wasn't possible.
Well, I don't
That-
know who told you all
You
these
guys
things.
said it.
We did.
Yes,
No,
you
sir.
guys said it at a meeting that it was not possible to go from one end of Upland Drive to the other. There would be a 6 to bring it to town.
We are
Towns-
not making it town
Come on.
standard. We have no plans.
There would be a 6-foot drop. And
Are there copies of the local law? Do we have copies on that front table? Because it would be. Oh, I've got 2 copies if you would like it to take a look.
yeah, I would like it. But who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for paving the road? And who's going to?
There's no intentions of paving.
well, hold on.
If
We have no knowledge of anyone paving the road. This is to establish standards for the development of property on Upland Drive. I think if you read the law, you'll see what the intent is.
All I know is for years, there were no standards for, it just wasn't possible to build on Upland Drive. One guy got somehow a building permit through, and then other people were turned down. For years. Now all of a sudden, I don't know.
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
If you do read the local law, there may be enough people making public comments because they're very short. They're about 4 pages. You may be able to make a comment afterwards.
Okay.
If you take a look at it, I think you'll
Thank you.
see what the thrust of the law is. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Justin Herminghouse, resident of Upland Drive for 20-something years, officer with the ambulance corps too, so
Yes.
I get to see both sides of that coin. Thank you to the board for tackling this issue. I know how contentious and difficult it is to manage things on that road. And obviously I support some control on development on the road. I think the key phrase here is just one more, you know, because we've seen abandoned houses being re-inhabited and renovated. We're seeing new houses coming up or attempting to go up. So I think it's good. I've also understood the board has been able in some approvals to attach a condition of doing some improvement work as part of the approval, which has been much appreciated. And just two things from the law, if I may. When the supervisor originally, we started talking about this with the moratorium law some time ago, and you proposed upzoning, you kind of off the cuff threw out a number of 5 acres, which is, I think, very generous. But if there's any possibility in the consideration of the drafting of the law to maybe up the number to 3 acres, 4 acres, anything we do to kind of limit the just one more factor while still respecting people's options and abilities. And also in reading the law, I didn't see, and this may apply somewhere else, but as I apologize, I didn't see anything specifically limiting to single-family houses, which I think would also be a valid consideration.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you for your action and my support.
Thank you.
Richard, is it currently 2 acres in the local law, and you were suggesting upzoning it? That comment was suggesting upzoning it further?
We'll definitely take that under consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth Coulombe, 88 Upland. I just wanted to follow up what Justin said. Very much in agreement with him. We've been appreciative of the improvements on the road because of the attachments to new building codes. But the 2 acre minimum, one thing we've been talking about is a lot of the lots are very thin and narrow with a very short frontage and run 2 acres back. And so if you're saying a 2 acre minimum, one of the concerns there is that you can have a large number of houses go in very easily because some of the lots are so long and thin. So having a larger acreage requirement would help with that. Thank you.
Hi there, Maria Nattiello, 84 Upland Drive. Basically, I'm on the same page as Justin and Liz. That 2 acre minimum is concerning to us. You know, we are very appreciative of having this taken into consideration, but with the state of the road as it is, and we're up towards the end where it gets really bad, the 2 acre minimum just, it doesn't seem like enough. So we're hoping you'd consider increasing that minimum lot size.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to leave here tonight thinking that we have control over previously existing lots. If someone has owned a building lot for 30 or 40 years, we can't come in as a board and say that lot is no longer, if it's an acre and we've been collecting taxes on it for a period of time, we can't just say to those people, you no longer have a building lot. That's not possible. But if people are coming in with substandard lots and looking for variances, that can be taken into account.
Well, it could also be grandfathered in, right? If we did make a change, possibly.
Yeah, that's something we'd have to talk to the accountants, legal counsel about. But if people have building lots today, they're going to have them tomorrow.
Understood. Yeah. No, you can't take away from it.
Anyone else? Anything else from the board? Oh, yes.
Hi, my name is Waxman. I live in...
If you could speak into the microphone, that would help.
Okay. My name is Waxman. I live on Upland Drive, Philipstown Court. And I would like to review some things in general. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Shea, for finally bringing this forward. This was 2-3 years in the making. It's finally moving forward. So we appreciate this instead of just hanging in limbo. The road that exists there was built 75 years ago when there were no standards at all. And this was built as a summer development where people came out for 2 months in the summertime to hang out in a cottage that had no heating, no nothing, and then they left. Eventually that morphed into residential homes. And at some point, I think somewhere in the 80s, the town finally developed some standards how you can build. So according to these new standards, all the people who invested the whole life of upgrading their homes and paying taxes and so on would have been thrown out. So the town grandfathered them, meaning that they can live under the old code as long as they had the house before. But any new houses were supposed to have another standard. They were supposed to have a standard of a private road. So there are two standards in the town. One is for a town road, and one is for private development. So whoever applied for a permit had to bring it up to that level, and it was just not economically feasible for anybody to do that, so it was just let go. In 2018, one morning we saw a sign posted on a tree that they have a building permit. This shocked everybody because many people had bought parcels which the town used to dump before they passed the in-rem law, and then the county still continues it to this day. They think they got a big bargain, and then they found out it's not doable. So it was a total shock to everybody that he got a permit to build. When we looked into this, we saw that he simply lied. He said things that he spoke to people on the road, and they said the road is okay. The people he claimed he spoke to denied this. They said he never talked to them. He came up with the things that's a perfect road. You saw the road. It is not a perfect road. So anyway, somehow he claimed he wants to build it for his own family. It's now in the market for almost $1 million. He's simply a developer who cheated his way in. Now this opened up a precedent, and now developers are crawling up and down the road. Private people are doing that. So I want to describe the road, how the road actually is. The road is very steep. It was built without a road engineer. Roads are designed to be stable for a long time because they're exposed to the elements. They have to bear a lot of weight. It's not like a house where you have a roof. So to do that, you have to have a good underlayment, which is supposed to support the weight of the cars. On top of that, you put concrete so the water doesn't go in, but still the water has to be able to drain out. So the road is usually crowned so the water can drain off to the sides. You need ditches to the side. You need culverts where the water would cross the road, and so on. This is even on a flat prairie road. If you build this road over a mountain like this is done, you have to take in consideration how the streams run. You have to take the topography into account. So you have to make twists and turns to avoid streams and runoff and all that kind of stuff. All this was never done. The road almost straight goes up and down. The road is barely 1.5 lanes wide. In some places it's even less because it's hemmed in either by thick forest or by boulders, literally. In the wintertime, it cannot be plowed properly because there's no way for the snow to go. So it becomes even narrower. The road twists and turns. Many times when somebody comes up and down and they meet at the same time, it becomes very dicey because it's very hard to back up on such a narrow road, especially in the wintertime. In the wintertime, sometimes people can't come up to their homes because even though the road is plowed, it melts during the day, it gets icy in the evening. You have to park your car way down the road at the pull-off and walk up. Sometimes when you go down in the wintertime, you spin out because the road freezes and unfreezes. There are about 70 lots that can still be built. If you build a lot, that will increase at least 4 times a day. You will have traffic going up and down. 2 people going to work, coming home every day. 4 times 35 is about 140 people. So if 140 people will get new permits, this is going to be a complete disaster. It's just not tenable. The town proposed a 2-acre zone upzoning. This makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. If such a road will have so many new people, it's going to be absolute disaster. So it has to be upzoned to at least 5 acres. And I can tell you, first of all, the road is officially, and Justin can verify that, officially on the no-go list for the ambulance, the local ambulance. We're not talking about the ambulance that comes from Yonkers who doesn't know the roads, the people who know the roads. One person asked the fire department to certify that the road is good. The fire department said, we go up any road, even if there's no road, and we are not in the business of certifying roads, and they declined to certify it. One of the people who lived on this road, his name was Mr. Lundstrom, he was dying of cancer, and his last days he was in terrible pain. He had to go to the hospital to remove his suffering. So the ambulance came and they called his wife and told him, we can't come up the road. We have a public responsibility. If you can bring your husband down, we will wait for him. So she had a small, I think a Volkswagen, and she had to take a big, tall husband, cram him in the wintertime, cramming into a little car to bring him down. So we're not talking theoretical things, we're talking about actual real things. I want to address another point, which is that the road is not owned by anybody. It is not like a development, a private development, where private people own the road and whoever buys a lot becomes part of that development, which includes the upkeep of the road. Or people have a town road and they pay through their taxes support the upkeep of the road. Now, safe and adequate access is not something that's given as a one-time pass. In other words, it's not like a test that you have to take and you're done with it, you can forget about it. The point of safe and adequate access is so you can go to work and come home. You can go shopping and come home. If a police needs to come, they can come up and back. If the fire department has to come, if the police have to come. So this has to be maintained for the duration of the house. It's not just a one-time thing. So people who have been grandfathered, they don't have to keep these standards. They're left on their own. For half a century, we somehow managed to get going, we somehow managed. We don't have to maintain even private road standards. These people who will get permits will have to do that. We don't want to be their bankers and bankroll them. That has to rest on their own shoulders. They have to pay for the special upgrade, which we don't have to do. And not only in the beginning, this has to be, because the road is so self-destructive. How did the road get cut? Nobody went and cut the road. By itself, it just eroded because it was so poorly designed. So the road will need continuous maintenance to keep it up to private road standards, and this should have to be paid by the person who gets the permit, not the rest of the people. This is not our obligation. The only way to do that would be to levy this on the person's house. In other words, he would be responsible to fix it up, to maintain it on a schedule, and this should be done by a road engineer, not somebody who blacked up driveways, because they don't really know how to handle these roads. So this should be a requirement for getting a permit, that a road engineer would study this. It could be the town road engineer, or somebody can take their own engineer. He will give them specs to what it has to be upgraded and how it has to be maintained. And if they don't maintain it, then the town should come and fix the road and levy this against their house. That's the only safe way to protect the people who live on the road. And also upzone it so we never have that density of 2 acres, of 2-acre building. It's just going to be a disaster. I wrote this up in some detail. I can give you copies each.
Anyone else wish to comment? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beatrice Copeland. I will be a future resident of Upland Drive. I'm currently restoring one of the houses that was abandoned and vandalized at 26 Upland. And I agree with some of my neighbors talking about larger parcel sizes, just taking into consideration the parcel sizes that currently exist and that are zoned, and potentially increasing that acreage. I'd also say, I know that there is my construction and currently something up on Cliffside where trucks have been coming in and out, and even with just those two builds or remodels, we've seen some of the drainage pipes burst, and I think privately residents on the road have taken care of grading that road so it's safer and better to drive. But I can only imagine that when we have more parcels being built on, the state of the road is just going to degrade very quickly, because currently there's only 2 houses with trucks going up and down, and yeah, with building that would just increase. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone who's interested to get a copy of both local laws, the one we're about to have another public hearing on, because it addresses a lot of these concerns in the local laws about how you will have to upgrade the road. It talks about the travelway, the width, the drainage, grades, all these sorts of things. So be a good read. Anyone else?
Sorry, just a quick clarification from the board, and I apologize in advance if the answer is read the local laws. Regarding one of the supervisor's comments about what's the dividing line between grandfathered or new development? In other words, in what conditions would someone be able to apply to develop a single 1 acre lot, or what development would fall under the new guidelines?
If someone currently has or had a 1 acre building lot from the past, then they're going to have that lot going forward. So if you're coming in trying to gang together lots to make a new lot, a conforming lot, you're going to have to get up to that 2 acre standard in this law. If we can up it to 3 acres, we'll talk to our attorney and see about that. Then you'd have to get up to the 3 acre standards. You're going to have to get, a lot of lots that are side by side or front to back, however that goes. I thought the one interesting suggestion was mandating road frontage, having a certain amount of road frontage. That may be another avenue to explore. But again, if you look at the local law that we're moving on to next, it sets forth road standards. And, as you know, if you're on Upland, achieving any sort of road standard is going to be that's a tough road to hoe.
That's very polite, sir.
When I was first appointed to the Philipstown Town Board, I drove up Upland Drive because it was an issue back then in 2019 as well. And it is a very dangerous road, and I was concerned about the safety of our first responders and ambulances and all of our, those who have to travel up it. So it is a concern, and we have to be careful about that.
Just for everybody's edification, I just would like to go through 4 of the points in the law we're discussing now. This would be forming the Upland Road Development District. Maximum density shall be 2 acres. So you need right now, according by the laws, it stands a 2 acre lot. The minimum lot size shall be 2 acres. The maximum impervious surface shall be 10% of that 2 acres. Maximum footprint for, and I don't know, this is funny, non-residential structures. I don't think you can even have a non-residential structure. I think that should be residential structures. Shall be 4,000 square feet. That's a pretty good size footprint.
But anything over 3,000, you have to go before the planning.
Yeah, anything over 3,000, you have to go before planning anyway. Steep terrain and ridgeline protection regulations in the code shall apply. In addition, disturbance of slopes of 30% or greater for a purpose other than those listed in the Code 175-36B shall require a grant of a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So you would also have to go before the ZBA if you're looking at anything that's over 30%, which is an incredibly steep slope. That would be a real stretch to get granted something like that in the town of Philipstown on a slope of that degree. Anyone else?
So I see it says one of the stipulations is that they have to come up with a road maintenance agreement?
Yes.
Who comes up with that?
The applicant would have to go and get a road maintenance agreement together that would be suitable, that would be reviewed by the town and then deemed suitable by the town.
Go to who to get it? Go to the residents, or
Well,
just
it would
the
be-
applicant just
it-
come up with their own road agreement and everyone has to?
It would be in probably everyone's best interest if neighbors got together and formed a road maintenance agreement, because that's how most successful private roads are managed. And now with any new developments, you must have a road maintenance agreement in place in order to start new developments. If the neighbors can't get together, the onus is going to be placed upon that applicant to bring the road up to those standards, up to their property.
So if there's a developer, let's say, wants to develop 20 parcels there.
Right.
Are they going to have like the ruling majority over the road now?
No,
Are they
no one
gonna be
has a
able to say
ruling, no one
what-
has a ruling majority. What they will have to do is bring the road up to the standards set forth in the next law that we're about to talk about.
They're going to bring it up to standards.
They would have to, yes.
Okay.
Which it pretty much would be impossible,
Well,
if you really look at it, it'd be tough.
Now I see there's also variance that you guys are going to possibly give.
So,
If the applicant demonstrates that it's unable to comply with the applicable town road specifications due to physical limitations developer meant.
Gabe, can I stop you for a minute, Gabe?
Yep.
We're not on to that law yet. We're still in the public hearing for the first law. So if we could hear the public comments on the development district law first, and then we'll close this hearing, then we'll move on to this one. That would be a better format, or more appropriate, since we're not even in a public hearing for this right yet.
My concern, because I don't want to stay here too much longer, I gotta go to have a weak bladder, but if the town gives these variants for the private.
Again, Gabe, as I just said, we're not in the public comment. Haven't opened this public hearing yet. So. Well, there are two sets of regulations. One's forming the district, which sets forth some standards. The other will be setting forth additional standards for development of the road. Would anyone else like to comment on this local law? Yes, Jamie.
Jamie Copeland, thank you for dealing with this. One idea occurs to me: the road goes all the way through to Sprout Brook. There's a section that just will never be passable. Maybe it should never be connected. Maybe it should be made just pedestrian, and change the name of one end, because it's confusing. People have tried to come through the impassable part, but I think maybe if it were made a pedestrian way in the impassable part, and it didn't try and make the through from Winston Lane to Sprout Brook, that would help. Thank you.
I think that's something that residents on the road might want to investigate and look into that, to get an attorney to give you an opinion on how you would go about doing something like that. It's not a bad idea. It's not something the town can impose because it's a private road.
Yeah. But thank you for dealing with this.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, since we're going to be talking about this again, could I get a motion to close the public hearing on this local law?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. Next notice, please.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Philipstown on October 7th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, 10516. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear comments for or against a proposed local law entitled "A Local Law to Amend Town of Philipstown Town Code, Chapter 112-35 and the Open Development Area General Regulations of Chapter 112, Article 8 in regard to standards for development of private roads." A complete copy of the local law is available for inspection upon request, sent to townclerk@philipstown.com and by appointment in the town clerk's office at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, 10516. Dated September 22nd, 2021, by order of the Town Board, Tara K. Percocello, Town Clerk.
So what this local law does is set forth standards for the road itself, the physical road, how it will be maintained, how the travel way will be set. There are two sets of guidelines. One is for 10 or more lots to be built upon. Another is for 9 or fewer lots. Either way, there are standards. We realize that it is just not possible to bring this road up to town standards at this point. As Mr. Waxman alluded to, it's a 75-year-old road. It's been there. It was for a summer camp. But we're still talking about minimum standards. If you're not able to meet the standards set under the open development area laws, then you would have to go into the planning board and set forth the standards, the alternate road standards. You would need a minimum of a 14-foot travelway constructed with suitable compacted gravel of at least 8 inches in depth. You would need drainage. The travelway should be provided with sufficient drainage to protect the stability of the travelway and prevent water from crossing the travelway surface. The travelway shall have suitable grades and alignment to provide safe and convenient access to cars, fire apparatus, and emergency vehicles, as well as for the clearing of snow and ice. Provided, however, if compliance with the said standards with regard to the width and travelway is not possible, the travelway may be improved to a lesser standard under the Open Development Area General Regulations of the Town of Philipstown. This does not say that you're off the hook. You still have to do it to the maximum extent practicable. So this, as I said, we were dealing with land use. On the other one, we're dealing with the physical road in this one. So if there's any comment from the board.
I just have a question about the road. Does it mean, Richard, that if, let's say someone who has a 1-acre plot currently on Upland Drive, and they want to develop it, in order to do so, they would have to bring the road up to town standards, and that would be a cost they would have to incur?
In order for them to build a new home on Upland Drive, you are going to have to improve the road to at least alternate road standards. And that will have to go before the planning board, our engineer. You're going to have to develop a plan. You'll have to have your engineer, and you'll have to bring that at least to your house. So and that's the thing we want to caution anyone who's entertaining buying one of these lots. May look like a great deal. Oh, I got a 1-acre or a 2-acre lot for $50,000. Meanwhile, you may have to put $500,000 into the road. I'm not saying that's the cost, but it could very well be if you're talking about a mile of roadway up to a lot with all the standards that are set forth in this law. Gabe, do you want to comment? I thought you might.
All right. So I see that if they have a private way from the road going up to their house, they don't have to bring it up to standards? Is that
They will have to. If
their private way?
if they are on the road and they are using that road to access a lot, they're going to have to adhere to these standards set forth in this law.
Okay. But these are lesser standards, right, on this law?
They're in the open development area law. They're going to have to go before the planning board and set forth an engineered plan that will meet a minimum set of standards in order to get a fire truck up there, an ambulance, a snowplow, all of these things, safe travel.
But the grade could be greater than 30 degrees?
No, there's no way, no road in town is 30 degrees. I mean, 15% is an extremely steep road. But again, putting forth, you're going to have to maintain a minimum of 14 feet wide. You're going to have to put down the base for the road. You may not be able, what this really applies to is the steepness of the road, alternate standards for slope.
Right, but I'm talking about from the road to their house.
From the town road to their house.
Right.
From Winston or?
Well, no, from
Sprout Brook.
upland to wherever their driveway is, up to their house. They don't have to bring that to standards?
They do have to bring it to
They
standards,
do.
yes.
Because that's not what I understood.
They don't have to bring it to town standards because we realize that's not possible.
Now, if they can't, what are they gonna do about the water coming, all that extra water coming off the road?
You have to be able to deal with the water. You have to be able to deal with stormwater. That's not only the town of Philipstown, that's a DC regulation, New York State regulation, but a local regulation also. You have to deal with the stormwater.
Okay. I just don't wanna have another 50 houses go up the road and me at the bottom of it get all the water.
Nor do we.
Which is a mess now.
Yes.
I mean, I had to buy a Kubota just to maintain the road, because I can't do it by hand anymore.
Right.
But, all right, thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this, the road standards law? Anything further from the board? Oh, yes. Welcome back.
I had a couple questions about some of the wording, and I just wanted to pull my notes up. I was hoping that I understand that some of it can't be clarified because it will be based situationally, but there were some things that I was wondering about, such as it says that you will ask people to make sure the road goes to a minimum width of 14 feet, that there's adequate drainage on either side. I'm not sure about how everybody else's deeds are worded, but I know that for me, we don't own the road itself. We own our property up to the road. And so if people are coming in and building and they have to build out the road to a certain width and provide drainage as well, where does that land come from? Is there anything, how will that be decided? Is there any
Generally,
wordage?
the road would be laid out on a tax map somewhere and show a right-of-way, even when it was established. There's no map that would show a road of less than 14 feet. So people have a right to that width of road by the right-of-way that goes through. Everyone has a right-of-way to get to their property.
There are some areas as well, I think this was alluded to earlier, where there are literally boulders up to the road on either side, and it's not possible to widen it like that without blasting. So is that one of those situations where it does not have to be brought up to code in that area, or would that be?
There's going to be there have to be some allowance made to deal with a situation like that, not by the town, by the prospective developer, because our engineer is going to have to receive a plan from their engineer that deals with that in some form. How are we going to get a fire truck through that area safely? How are we going to get an ambulance in there? How are you going to plow the snow? How are you going to deal with the drainage? These are all things that will need to be addressed for anyone to develop a lot.
Thank you. And my last question was about how is it decided? The road is supposedly a through road. We all know it's not actually a through road. How is it decided which direction somebody must bring the road up to code from? Is it based on distance from either Winston Lane or Old Albany Post Road, or ease of accessibility, or is there anything, would that be part of the plan somebody would present, or is that going to be laid out?
I imagine people, if they're living on something where you have a connecting road, you'll be able to come from whichever other side you prefer.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes, Bill. Oh.
Hello, my name is Melissa. I live in Ethan Drive in Garrison. So I just had a quick question about the law. So it seems like this is only applying to new developments, that they would have to adhere to these regulations in order to keep the law if they're buying new property. But what about the current residents? So if we wanted to maintain the road, we still have freedom in our own way to maintain the road, or do we have to adhere to this new law?
If it's not associated with new development, the residents can do what they deem appropriate on their own road.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify the idea that came up about possibly ending the road, because there is a section of upland where you can't really get down anymore. And you said the town can't do it, right? It has to be residents. So if it's like, we don't own the road, how, I just want to know the idea of that and how we would go about even looking into that.
Again, that's something for an attorney. I know just based on things like if residents are petitioning the town to take over a road, they need to get a certain percentage of residents in order to sign on to a petition in order for us to take that road over, or not for us to take it over, for us to consider taking it over, which we're not doing in this case. I don't want to lead anybody to believe that.
Understand.
I don't know if it would work the same way. It may work the same way, that if you get a certain majority, a super majority, whatever that percentage is, you may be able to do that. I'm not sure.
Okay. It is dangerous, and we have signs on both sides saying it's not a through road, and we still have people going down and getting stuck constantly. So, you know, we want to make sure everyone's safe. And
A lot of slow learners out there.
yeah, there.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Darren Berquist. I actually live on off of Old Albany Post Road. I understand that Putnam County owns a number of parcels on this particular road. Has the town had any discussions with Putnam County about perhaps putting some sort of easement on the properties that they have in order to limit development?
We have had very preliminary discussions with our legislator involved regarding this. Obviously, we're going to pursue those more vigorously now. My idea would be, since the county turns many of these what's called in rem properties that are taken for taxes over to the town of Philipstown, it would be great if the county would just turn all these lots over to the town of Philipstown. Then there'll be no development on those county lots, at least. If the county wants to go selling these lots, that certainly would be putting a thumb in our eye and putting a lot of burden on our residents. That's something we would want to have a longer discussion with about. But they certainly are not hurting for money right now, so I don't know why they would start selling these lots off. And again, even if they did, people need to be made aware that, look, there are standards that you're needing to adhere to in order to develop this lot. So you may buy a county lot for $50,000, and if you got to get to the top of Upland Drive with these standards, it's probably not going to look like such a bargain.
I appreciate that. And I would just encourage the town to continue a dialogue with the county about, if they do intend on selling those parcels, to create a solution that doesn't allow for extensive development.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the phone first thing tomorrow with them.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, anybody's buying any property anywhere, you better do your homework beforehand before you purchase it to make sure you can build what you want to do or do what you want with that piece of property. Because people just, you can't assume anything, okay?
No. Yeah, we've had some unhappy situations where people have purchased lots, paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for them, and been completely unable to develop them. So let the buyer beware. It happens. It has happened. It's even happened to seasoned developers in this town, most recently within the last 2 years. So it's not a given. Do your homework.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you get people buy pieces of property or adjacent to commercial property, and then 10 years down the road, someone wants to develop that commercial piece of property, and they're like, "Oh, I never knew that." You really got to do your homework.
Yeah. Anyone else to comment on this law?
Sorry. I don't really understand the technicalities of the law, but my question is, I'm on the corner of Upland and Cliffside, and currently there's a house going up on Cliffside, and I'm just wondering, does this law include maintenance? Once they bring the road to specs that and meet the requirements to build, what happens after? Because the road erodes very quickly no matter what you put on it. I mean, the folks on Cliffside paved a section of it that's only been a few years, that's already eroding. So the burden seems to fall on a few. Not everybody chips in, even for snow plowing. So there's nothing, I mean, I've been there for 22 years. I don't think there's much we can be done about that. But if new people are coming on, what about, and I don't even suggest that the burden fall on new builds, but I guess in the past we've explored the idea of everybody sharing the burden of maintaining the road, but that doesn't seem to happen. It's certainly not going to get a collective group to cooperate on the road. But what about once they build and they do what they had to do, like the corner of Cliffside recently, now what? The part that was already fixed to build 4 Cliffside courts already eroding. So do they have to fix that, or?
I don't know right now. Honestly, I don't know. It's a good point. I'll bring it up with the attorney. I do know that when you are doing a new subdivision, you do need a road maintenance agreement, and that's in perpetuity. But in the case of individual lots, I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But that's a great question. I'll bring it up. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, could I get a motion to close the public hearing? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Moving on to the agenda. It's 7:30 now.
Somewhere it is.
Somewhere it's 5 o'clock. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Nice to see you. Now that we're starting the meeting, we're going to go through the protocols. If you'll all rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Get to this here. Approval of minutes, monthly town board meeting, September 2nd, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Public hearing, comprehensive plan update continued, September 2nd, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Workshop, September 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Workshop, September 22nd, 2021.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Committee reports, and make them brief. Conservation Board.
Okay, Conservation Board, I think the two most important points are the Conservation Board would like to see the Hudson Highlands Reserve Plan come across them again as it came before them the first time, and it's going in front of the Planning Board again, so that was a request that they were asking for. I'm relaying to the board. And then the second thing is that there is a developing discussion on the Conservation Board about strengthening enforcement of Conservation Board tools. And they are thinking about issues like how to make sure that the perpetual maintenance agreements that they assign are complied with. And so they are planning to come up with a list of prioritized enforcement ideas to present to the town board in coming months.
Great.
Yep.
So if they should make a formal request to the planning board to get that plan, back to them.
Okay.
That's the way that's done.
Okay, I will relay that to them.
All right. Recreation.
Good evening. I attended the Recreation Commission meeting on September 28th. There was a presentation by the Hudson Highland Trust on the Ford Trail and the developments around Stony Point and Breakneck. It's very exciting, and for more information, please go to hhlt.org. There will be future presentations to the community on the Ford Trail. The Recreation Commission is pleased to announce the Castle to River Run is Saturday, October 30th. Please go to friendsofphilipstownrecreation.org for information on the run, to register for the run, and to volunteer. We would love to see a lot of people out there running and also volunteering. The Recreation Department is also sponsoring a family drive-in film on October 29th. So please check Philipstown Recreation Department's website for more information on the family movie night, October 29th.
Thank you, Judy. Philipstown Hub.
There have not been any recent meetings, but Philipstown Hub recognizes this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Philipstown Hub is here to serve our community. If anyone has any mental health needs or knows of anyone that needs assistance, please go to philipstownhub.org.
Thank you. Planning Board.
Okay, Planning Board, it was a very long meeting, but I'll make this as brief as possible. Correspondence, Beatty and Watson requesting a 6-month extension on CRS Internationals and Magazzino site plans. A letter was read of concern about an unregistered daycare preschool at 75 Oak Hollow in Garrison. I believe this was turned over to the building inspector to investigate. Return of escrow to Cummings at 1 South Mountain Pass Spur. Neil Zuckerman wanted to make sure this was aware of this. The planning board and Neil mentioned at the meeting that with all new development coming on Route 9, that increases truck and car traffic. So everyone's aware of that. I just want to make sure everyone knows about it, but I'm sure everyone is. But also at the same time, they do recognize the people who have owned this property have rights to build and develop their properties. We had 2 public hearings carried over from last month. Riverview Industries, 3012 Route 9 Cold Spring. There was no comments at all from the public, and the public hearing was closed. 3622 Route 9, right up there by Nicola's. I've been talking about this for several months as well. There was no public comment at all, so that public hearing was closed. Getting on to old business, the Garrison Golf Course in Shakespeare. I don't want to go into long detail about this, but we've hired AKRF, who's helping out the planning board to go through this. There was a lot of, they submitted their EAF Part 3, and there was a lot of comments back from AKRF. Now, the applicant needs to reply to those, and there was a lot. That's why the meeting was so long. They had over 100 or so details that they needed to discuss. And that's the same thing with Hudson Highland Reserves, as you indicated. The only change there, as indicated last month, the horses they were going to have up there is taken out of the plan, which was very contentious for everybody. So that's been eliminated, but they're in the same process as with AKRF as well. They need to address all the issues that they spoke of. Meeting was adjourned at 10:15. Next meeting, October 21st, Viva Zoom.
Thanks, Bob. Zoning.
I attended the zoning meeting on October 4th. There was 2 public hearings. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. You stabbed me with your pen. 2 public hearings at the zoning board meeting on Monday night. Both appeals were approved unanimously. The next meeting will be November 15th. Where's Kelly? I think it's November 15th due to the holiday. That's it.
Thank you. Highway.
Highway work performed by the Philipstown Highway Department for the month of September. Tropical Storm Ida came with torrential rainfall, major damages including undermining sections of the following roads. East Mountain North, East Mountain South, Trout Brook Road. Trees were down on Horton, Indian Brook, Beale. The overall response time of the Highway Department was quick and roadways were passable for the Labor Day weekend. We are in contact with FEMA and are working on providing information in order to get funding for repairs. Crews have been regrading dirt roads, which has finally been finished prior to Storm Ida. Progress on the new highway garage has been slow, if not halted temporarily. Work is expected to restart again early October, and we are hoping footing work will be completed soon. American Petroleum is near finishing the installation of the new fueling system. A new grapple bucket was purchased for the skid steer. As school is now in session, once again, we would like to remind all motorists to please slow down. The safety of everyone depends on it. The Highway Department received 40 phone calls. The Highway Department spent approximately $11,800 in vehicle maintenance. Submitted Carl Frazenda.
Thank you. Building and land acquisition is, Councilman Van Tassel just alluded to. The highway garage, like most things, is being held up because of the pandemic and trying to get the building itself. In all likelihood, the footings will start. We're going to get the shop drawings so we can get the embedment placements for the steel building, but we probably won't see the building until next March.
The earliest it looks like is April, but
April.
the footings and foundation is going to be starting October 12th. The machine was brought there today and excavation began. So
Right.
concrete's going to be poured, the rebar is delivered, so they're moving.
Right. Unfortunately, we can't control the supply of steel buildings right now. It's just, that's as soon as we can get one. But we're going to keep moving there, so you'll see a new highway garage in the spring. Cemetery Committee.
There was no meeting of the cemetery committee, as there's no funding left to do work at the moment.
Okay. Putnam County Legislator.
I believe Nancy's in a budget meeting at the county currently.
Okay. Moving on to the agenda. Could I just make a request, since We have Neil Zuckerman here. I'd rather move him up from number 9 to number 1 as a courtesy, with the board's approval.
That's fine with me.
All right, Neil. Hello, Neil.
Gang, I've never seen at least any of you with a tie on. Bob Flowery with a tie, that is just an extraordinary thing. I'm impressed. I got undressed or underdressed, and you guys updressed. So
Well, Flaherty wears a tie 300 days a year.
I've never seen it. I'm just, that's the different orbits of our lives.
One of the only board members who wears the tie.
I feel like I should salute him. No, thanks for, you know what, I must say, oh, sorry, what'd you say, Judy?
I don't wear a tie.
Well, you know, if this was 1986, women could wear a tie still. You remember that, working girl, all that? Okay. It is amazing how much the planning board comes up in abstention. I've never actually come ever to the town board meetings, so I'm glad I'm being mentioned by name, and all the planning board issues are coming up. It just shows that's an important activity. So I will say I have great respect for what you guys do. As a slightly underpaid or less paid even than you are, I know what it's like to do a part-time job, and so thanks for what you're doing. I hope it also comes across as serious that I'm standing here, that I've never been before the town board meeting to talk about this issue. I'm actually not here about planning boards. I'm here as a very, very, very small business owner. My wife and I own a little company called Hudson Division Properties, which owns, among a couple other things, 21 Lower Station Road, which is the brick building on the east side of the tracks of the Garrison Landing. We did this as a business. It makes a little money, not a lot, but a little bit of money. We also did in part, I was the chair of the Putnam County Historical Society, at least when it used to be called that, and we did a little bit of preservation. We hope what we did with this 1860s building as the decor of the landing, and I think in general it's been going through a nice little revival with dollies, etc. I will say I'm here though because we're having trouble running our business, and I've spoken to many of you individually, and I appreciate that you're really thinking about this. I'm coming to you to talk about this publicly because I think it needs a little attention, but we're having trouble running our business. We are running out of water, and we run out of water frequently. I'm just going to read some dates. May 10th, Monday, July 16th, July 17th, Saturday, August 12th, August 26th, September 5th, September 9th, September 11th, and October 4th. What are those dates? Those are when I've been called by my tenant at 7 a.m. to say we have no water. Henry's got to go to school, there was no water. First day of work, no water. The most basic of all town activities of any municipality is to provide for the basic services. I think of water being probably one of the earliest things. Maybe fire, maybe water. I don't know which of the two is more prevalent as a basic service. And I understand the uniqueness of that area, and we realize I lived here for almost 20 years. Water's not something we usually do. It's not a thing we do in most of our town. But this is the one of those unique spots, one of a couple, where we have town water. And it's becoming difficult. Our tenant, and I don't want to lose my tenant. I don't want him to move away. I think he enjoys it. He and his wife and his son enjoy the area. But we're going to lose that tenant. We're going to lose our office tenants because they cannot go to the bathroom. They cannot get water to drink, and that's a problem. I don't know the root cause. I can hypothesize. Maybe it's new uses. Maybe it's some damage. Maybe it's some errors. And by the way, it's not my problem to go, problem I shouldn't say. I don't want to go worrying about who's at fault because I know that there are root causes of volume as well of water. But we've got to solve it collectively. The price point, look, we're paying what, $900 a year for water? I'm happy to give you more. I'm sure most of us in the landing would be able to happily give more water, but we've got to solve the problem. I want to thank Bob, who I texted him at like 7:01 when I get the call from the tenant, and Bob's on it. And this is, again, he's not the full-time water guy. This is a side gig, and that's a side of a side gig for Bob. So I thank you, Bob, for what you're doing publicly. But we need to solve it, and I'd love your thoughts as to where we're going. I know there are plans in place, but even, as I mentioned, the dates, very recently even, my tenant, I think it was it, what did I say, October 4th, so that was Monday. So I didn't schedule that intentionally before I came before you, but I'd love your thoughts on what we're doing and how we're going to solve this, because there's nothing in my view more pressing for a town to do than provide water. So thank you guys. I'll take my answer when I sit down.
We have several water districts in town, maybe surprise everybody. The one at Garrison Landing has been problematic for many years. The town built the district ourselves. So we put the whole system in. At the time, It was something that we couldn't have done. We had gotten prices, this is 19 years ago, in excess of $1.5 million to do the work. We did it in-house for $275,000. So up until about 2 years ago, and that's coincidentally when some things changed down there, we were fine. We were on tight margins, but we always had water. Most recently, we haven't, and we've been trying to address the issue in various ways. We did change the pumps on the wells. We hydrofracked the wells. We've done just about everything we can with the existing infrastructure. The idea now is to drill a new well further away from the existing wells so we can tap in, hopefully, to a different source of water. Councilman Flaherty has spearheaded the issue. We have approvals from the Putnam County Board of Health. We're just waiting. Next week, we're supposed to get approvals from OSI, the owner of the property that we're hoping to get on the golf course to drill the new well. This will be an exploratory well to see if there's water there. If there's not, we're going to have to go to another location even further away. But what we're hoping is that we're going to get in there in the next 2 weeks, drill a new well, get it tested. The testing for a municipal water system is pretty rigorous, so that can take some time. But we're hoping within a month to have a new source of water and be able to alleviate this concern and the problem.
It could, well, just so you know, after we get, hopefully we get enough water to produce what we're looking to get here. But there's other steps that need to take after that. As we got to do the testing, we're gonna have to move a septic system. That's part of that house over there as well. So it's gonna take some time. But the biggest thing is get the well in, we get the amount of gallons per minute that we need, then we can move forward. I've talked to our town engineer. I told him to start making the process for the septic system to be moved if necessary as well. So everything is lining up. It's just taking a little bit more time than I anticipated, to be quite honest, because I've been on this thing since like February 1st, like every single day.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're getting the calls, that means we're getting the calls. Nobody wants to have unhappy residents, obviously, and it is our duty to supply that water. We have a mandate there. So one of the issues with the district is it's a small district with not big overhead, but larger overhead than can be covered by the charges. We can only charge, by New York state law, $20,000 a year for the entire district. So not alone will that not cover operations and maintenance, it certainly won't cover capital projects. So anything that goes wrong, we need to come up with more funding. We're trying to come up with a creative way of spreading the costs out, but we have spent a tremendous amount of money on trucked-in water, and we just cannot do it. We have to do it because we need to supply the water, but we can't continue to do it. So the solution is drilling this new well and hopefully getting, a supply of water that's reliable.
Thank you for that. And I'm not suggesting that the money to provide for it is sufficient. It makes perfect sense. What I would ask is, Bob, given the volume of dates you've just mentioned, there's a number of steps. I would ask, and look, I take it as an important part of my role in the planning board to be transparent at all times. I'd ask for a similar set of transparency, whether that's itemizing that on the town website or sending a note to the various stakeholders down at the landing about those sets of steps, because I for one am going to forget what you just said, and it would be great if we can find a way to communicate that. Not in no way a gotcha, oh, you missed this date, but just for the transparency of it, because I don't think people know about those various steps, and I think it's just worth it and good process.
We can put something together, Neil, not a problem.
Thank you.
Right, I think that communication aspect is important right now.
The schedule of events as they're gonna.
Yeah, here's the things that need to happen, and because you do a great job, for example, when I can't remember, maybe it was last summer, there was something wrong with the water, so a letter came out saying that the water's it's not potable right now, wait a couple of days. Letters were done instantly, they were sitting everywhere on the landing, so I think it's similar. Whatever tool you use to pass that around, maybe that was Bob passing it around, I don't know, but
Yep.
Good,
Yep.
thank you.
We'll get that.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
We'll just talk about water.
The discussion regarding elder care, since there are a few seniors who
Sure,
are waiting.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. So, where are we? Which item is that? Number 8. Okay, let's move that up. Who's here to speak about elder care?
I
That was actually Jason.
Jason,
Yeah, I
yes.
think that's our discussion, Richard, about discussing kind of ongoing local food insecurity and elder care in Philipstown.
So, not two entirely distinct issues, but I mean, obviously tied together largely, but two very large issues. I mean, elder care in Philipstown, a big demographic here. Seniors represent a large component of the Philipstown population. Also, making sure that people are eating. You know, it's a basic human right, especially in a town that is as wealthy as Philipstown. Since the pandemic began, it was something that was weighing on this town board pretty heavily, and wanting to make sure that people's needs were being met. That meant people at least had food, people had the medicines they needed, people had transportation to doctor's appointments, just some really basic needs being met. To that end, I went out and approached donors who I thought might be interested in supporting our efforts, and was not surprised, I mean, I'm never surprised in this town when people step forward to do things for us. I was surprised at the generosity, though. You know, we had several donors who gave $100,000. We had people who gave $70,000. We've had small donations down to $200, but every donation was important. We had several $50,000 donations. So during that time, and this started actually on 4/1/2020, right as the pandemic was getting going, we wanted to be able to not only support seniors, people in need, but also local businesses. You know, we went and bought gift cards from local businesses, delis, restaurants. What we also did that we found was extremely effective was buying Foodtown grocery cards. We were buying $10,000 worth of cards at a time and handing them out to families in needs. We did that not only here in Philipstown, we also did it in Beacon, we also did it in Putnam Valley, we did it in Peekskill. We need donations to Newburgh to make sure that school children there were having lunches. We also went to Recap in Newburgh, which is an organization that supplies basic needs to people. There were certain times when we also went, I'm not saying above and beyond, but tried to make people's lives, improve the quality of their lives. On Mother's Day, we gave out small gifts with the packages. We're working with Drug World, we're working with Recap, we're working with Fairground, which is an organization in Beacon that distributes meals to families in need. We donated money to Fairground, we donated money to Second Chance Foods, a great organization in this county that goes around and collects food that would otherwise go to waste, makes nutritious meals, boxes them up, and gets them out to families. It's just a really great organization. We've worked with Lodger Shelter Meals in Newburgh to provide assistance to families in need, but also initially when the pandemic shut schools down, many school children rely on those school lunches. So we wanted to make sure that they continue to get those lunches. So initially we donated $10,000 to Lodger Meals and then went from there, kept donating. To date, we've donated $461,000 to our neighbors in the Hudson Valley to make sure that people were taken care of. And it's beyond distressing to go out and see things that you normally just don't expect to see in this area. I mean, within a mile of Philipstown, there is such incredible need. I would say there is no greater need anywhere else in the United States or equal to things that I'd seen right here in our own backyard. It was just really difficult to see at times. So we've done a lot, and we've worked with a lot of groups, and we want to continue to do that. And we want people, if they have a need, we want them to feel free to come to the town. One of the things was there's no barriers involved in this. We're not going to ask people for proof of income. If someone's coming to us, we're going to take it on face value that they need help. People, and we've gotten comments, a lot of people are gaming the system. I said, well, I would imagine that is a really distinct minority, and if anyone at all. But we want to make sure at a bare minimum that people have the necessities, that they have food in their homes, that if they need a prescription, that was how we worked with Drug World. We set up an account there. If people needed things, then they went there and got them. There was no questions asked. Just, go and do it. If you needed a Food Town card, you got one. And, this board delivered those cards to people, went house to house delivering them. Same thing in Beacon. We set up giveaways there, and, hundreds and hundreds of people would show up. So we've helped thousands of families at this point. But there's still a lot more to do. And just because it feels like, the pandemic's under control, the need is still there. The need is still great. Our seniors still need assistance. And, it's these two populations I feel like that are many times forgotten about. Everything's great for me. I'm always saying that. It's great. I live in Philipstown. I have a great family. I live in a nice warm house. I eat. But that is not true for everyone. And until it is true for everyone, we're going to make sure that we don't leave people behind. So I don't know if, Jason, you want to add anything to that?
I did. If people don't mind, I wanted to kind of report back on some data that I've been looking into regarding local food insecurity in Philipstown and how it relates to elder care. Before that, I just, what the story Richard told and is not known very much about how the board was really the front lines of COVID-19 and the economic impact of families. And before any state aid came or federal aid, months before, the board was working with private partners and helping people who needed food and helping people who couldn't get medications. And like you said, Richard, I just admire, because I was seeing it, how much you all were driving to homes and doing that work. And so from my vantage point, I was not on the board yet. I was sitting around at my farm. We were donating food from our farm to the Philipstown Food Pantry. And it was at that point that, we had been doing a lot of work with our nonprofit in Peekskill, in Newburgh, in Poughkeepsie, where I thought, all of the food insecurity was. And my eyes were really open during that time about how much local food insecurity there is in Philipstown. And I was honestly surprised by it. And so there is really no one source of local data to track local food insecurity. But as you start to talk to people and dig around and make phone calls, I just want to share with the board and share with you all the picture that emerges about trying to keep track of local food insecurity in our community. So some of that picture involves, so we know from the most recent census that there are 120 households in the town of Philipstown that live below the federal poverty line. We also know, which you can assume are food insecure chronically. We also know that the United Way published a report called Alice in 2020 that looks at the number of households that are working but cannot afford the cost of basic essentials at the county level. And in Philipstown, they estimate that that's about 30% of Philipstown households, roughly 1 in 3. So as you're looking at that data, and you're saying, I think a lot of people get surprised by this, like Richard said, or Judy has said before, and many people on the board have worked on this issue. When you start walking around Philipstown, you see that it's not like other communities where there may be a neighborhood that is food insecure. It's more about individual homes around other homes that are food insecure. And so if we look at that and we get a conservative estimate of that 120 households, plus a conservative estimate talking to food experts, a third of those United Way Alice households, then you're looking at about 1,000 homes in Philipstown that are currently food insecure. As a conservative estimate, we don't have the local data. We're piecing it together right ourselves. And so where it comes in with elder care is that the United Way of Putnam and the Philipstown Food Pantry has found that elders are the most likely to be food insecure, as well as young children. So that is where this issue ties to elders, because they're the most likely to be isolated, they're the most likely not to be able to get to places to afford food. And that's where the issue of food insecurity ties to elder care. And so when you start to look at, if we know that maybe there are those number of homes, I think I misspoke. That wouldn't be 1,000. If we know that there are 120 homes that are living in poverty, and about a third of the the 1,000 homes that are struggling to make ends meet, you assume are food insecure. That's about 450 homes in Philipstown currently. Then you go and look at what local community organizations are doing to meet that local food insecurity. You have the Philipstown Food Pantry. They saw their numbers double during COVID-19, and they now say that's come down a little bit. They serve about 65 households per week. The other local food service provider is the Office of Senior Resources, Putnam County, through the Friendship Center. And they estimate that they serve about 30 households for lunch at the Friendship Center and make about 20 deliveries to households through their homebound meal service. So sorry to throw so many numbers at you after 3 public hearings, but to put that into our minds, that means that currently we're meeting about 25% of food insecurity in Philipstown locally. All right, about 25% through those programs. And so I guess building on what the board has already done and building on the fact that we are a community with resources and civic engagement, I really think that we should commit ourselves to a goal of zero food insecurity in Philipstown. I think that we should commit ourselves to the idea that no neighbor will not have enough food to eat. And we should set that as a goal and realize it's not, in a town like ours, it is an achievable goal. That means if we are trying to reach those that are not being served, that means that there's about 350 households out there that are our neighbors that would need to be reached to bring us down to zero food insecurity. And over 4 years, that's about 75, 80 households a year. And so I think part of this discussion is to commit ourselves to that. I would like to put that forward and be committed to it. And I think that, you know, in discussions with groups like Second Chance Foods and Cornell Cooperative Extension and the farms and the Cold Spring Farmers Market, one of the issues that's emerging is we have providers that can provide food for people that can get to the site and pick it up, whether they get to the senior center or they get to the Philipstown Food Pantry, but we don't necessarily have the mechanisms to get food to people where they are in Philipstown when they're isolated. And so I will leave it just with the idea of setting that bar for ourselves of zero food insecurity in Philipstown, showing other communities that that can be done. And, you know, I would propose to the board that we form a committee on community care, a new town committee on community care that would be charged with the responsibility of looking at that goal. And I would propose that when we have our discussions about how American Rescue Plan monies are used, that may be a source of funding to jumpstart the Committee on Community Care to look at zero food insecurity. And I think we've got to keep working with the County Office of Senior Resources and finding out how they can increase the services they're delivering here and take on that responsibility as well. And so I think it's something we're all passionate about, and I think it's something that we can show other communities around us that we find a way to do this in our community. Yeah. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Jason. I mean, it's a laudable goal. It's definitely an achievable goal in a town like this. We do have donors who have committed to the long term, and so funding, you know, is one component of that. The mechanisms for how we distribute that funding is the other component. That's the big figure out moment. So, I mean, I would be glad to keep going back to people. You know, I've had people come and ask me, well, when are you gonna come back to me for more money? So I think that the finances of this will work out, like as you said, between the American Rescue Plan funds, private donations. I'd like to see more private donations, but I think that'll continue to happen. But I agree, a committee on that would be a great idea. So, all right. Next item on the agenda, Tara. Unless we want to shuffle it around again.
Number one,
Right.
or?
We can.
The first item is a resolution approving change order contract H.1 HVAC CVS 01, and this is for louvers for the exterior louvers on the proposed highway department headquarters. in the amount of $1,080. This was sent at the beginning of the month, and then they changed all they did was change the change order number.
I think
It was with all the,
This is a color change.
yes,
And it was an expense
it's for,
because of the type, the color that was selected or
it
something.
had something to do,
Oh, there it
yes,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have, yeah, this was sent back. 'Cause first they
So the architect's recommending accepting this change order, the additional costs.
And it was also reviewed by construction management firm.
Mhm.
so.
All right, so we have an AIA change order document that's been submitted. I'm fine with it.
And it's the louvers for the HVAC system.
Right.
And it's colors there.
All right. All right.
What color are they gonna go with?
Rather than mill finish,
That doesn't matter.
We are going with one of the 6 standard powder coat finishes to be determined.
Yeah, because there's a color chart back here. I was
Yeah,
just looking for-
let's move this one along. I'll pay $1,000 to get out of here right now. Could I get a motion approving this change order?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye.
next is a resolution authorizing the release of funds for William and Laura Cummings, 71 South Mountain Pass Spur, Garrison, as recommended by the planning board.
Geez, I wish Neil was still here. We have the recommendation from the planning board to release the escrow funds, so this is a no-brainer. Could I get a motion on that resolution? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Keep going, Karen.
I'm trying. Next is a resolution approving the intermunicipal agreement for shared electrical inspections with Putnam County, which shall continue until December 31st, 2026, and authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign said agreement.
This is something we already do with the county. It is one of the services that we do get from the county. I certainly would want to continue with this. Greg does not have an issue with it. Andrew Padala serves on the electrical board. They were the ones who worked on this. He's fine with it. So in my estimation, this is a good program to continue along with. Could I get a motion on a resolution approving the shared intermunicipal agreement with the county for electrical inspections?
So
Anybody?
So moved.
All in favor?
Okay.
I vote aye. Somebody in there said it.
Next is a resolution authorizing the tax collection system upgrade proposal from Software Consulting Associates in the amount of $5,800. Now, this was something, remember I had brought this up a few months ago, and then me and Kelly had looked into other programs and stuff, and we both decided that it's probably best to stick with what we have at that price rather than go with a completely new system.
All right.
Which was like 50,000.
Was it that
Yeah.
much? I was gonna say, it was quite a bit more, I don't
think it
know.
was
Yeah,
56,000
it was, yeah.
to upgrade.
I don't know what happened to analog. Why we have to have all this software stuff? All right. Could I get a motion approving the tax collection system upgrade for $5,800?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye.
Next is a resolution in support of Ampion Renewable Energy Program. That has to do with the solar program. I believe Crystal had discussed that at the workshop.
She did, yeah, and I had a call with these guys regarding the supplier for our renewable energy program. Jason, are you in the loop on this?
Yes, yeah, so it just seems like it's a additional community solar program. It's voluntary. Those who signed up would get a 10% discount on their energy bill. It would also, everybody who signs up, the town of Philipstown would get $100 per sign up. It would also qualify the town of Philipstown for a $5,000 grant from the state, from the climate program. And so the most important part is it's voluntary, and Crystal will be reaching out to Philipstown homeowners individually, and no confusing letter will go
Right.
out.
Yeah, so, I mean, the great part of this is we only need 10 people to sign up, and we can avail ourselves to the $5,000 grant. It is completely discretionary, so I don't see any issue with adopting a support resolution for this program. Could I get a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call. Oh, boy. Councilman Van Tassel. Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Angel.
Aye.
And Judy, what do you say?
Aye.
Okay, Councilwoman Farrell says aye, and I say aye, unanimous. Thank you.
Next is a resolution approving the purchase of 2 highway department trucks in the amount of $161,617.60 off of Onondaga statewide bid on Gov. 1619 and authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign the lease purchase agreement with KS State Bank.
So this is a budgeted item. This is something that we anticipated doing. They went out to state bids, so everything that's legally required to do has been done in order to make this purchase. We are constantly replacing trucks, the highway department. The new trucks are good in a lot of ways. They're not going to break down, but they also meet current standards for diesel vehicles. So with that, could I get a motion authorizing me to sign that lease purchase agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Oh my God. Councilwoman Farrell.
I vote aye.
Councilman Angel.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Van Tassel. And I vote aye. Thank you.
Next is a resolution authorizing the town clerk to advertise for 2022 highway material bids.
Okay. Something we do every single year, so this is a pro forma resolution. Could I get a motion on the resolution authorizing the town clerk to advertise?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next on the agenda is to schedule any workshops or meetings. We have our regular monthly meeting scheduled for November 4th. We have a workshop request from the Rec Commission for either October 20th or October 27th. I don't know if anybody has a
Anyone have a preference?
preference.
20th would be.
I'd rather go to the 27th, but the daughter's getting married a couple of days.
Oh, 27th then.
Let's do the 27th. I'm booked on the 20th anyway.
Are we all invited?
Yeah, where's the party? So let's do the 27th for the Rec Commission.
And that'll be at 7:30 here.
7:30 here at Town Hall. I'll be here.
And then we do have to schedule budget workshops. I put down tentatively for the 13th, and that would be with all of them. I mean, the same night, I think.
That's next week.
I know.
I don't think we have enough information yet to do anything next.
Do you want to do it the 20th then? I mean, I know you just said you're booked the 20th, but because then we have to set the public hearing, and the public hearing on it has to be set for the 3rd.
Yeah, I'll push what I have on the 20th. I'll do the 20th. I've canceled this appointment 2 times already. Why not just cancel it again?
So we're going to 20th.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny, John. I get it. You know what he said? He said, "In my appointment for Rogaine." I really appreciate that.
And then we have to schedule the public hearings on the budget, which would be for November 3rd before our monthly meeting on the 4th.
Let's do that.
And those times listed are okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, those, again, are, by that point,
Yeah.
it's a fait accompli. We've had the public hearings for the budget. We've had all the discussions. We've had all the departments weigh in. So the Park District and the Water District are pro forma. The general budget, you know, if anybody wants to come in and comment at that point, feel free.
And then, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 13th is too close, so we're gonna do them the 20th.
We won't do highway and rec in the same night.
No, but it's not listed
I
here.
know, that's what I'm saying. She was trying to get them all done on the same night.
Nah, I don't think that's possible.
I
So
know,
that's
it's
gotta
tough.
be on October 20th.
So do you wanna do?
Well, I mean, we could do one also on the 27th.
I was just gonna say, what do you wanna do the 27th?
So we'll give the rec commission 30 minutes and then we'll go into highway at 8 o'clock on the 27th.
Well, if you have the rec commission here, we might.
All right, right. What am I thinking? Exactly, yeah. Let's do rec on the 27th and then go to highway on the 20th.
So rec the 27th, highway the 20th.
It's past my bedtime.
And what about the fire departments and ambulance corps? You want to do them the 20th or the 27th? Keep them the 20th because you're having the other workshop the 27th?
Yeah, let's do the 20th. Let's have a torture evening.
At 7.
Sorry.
Still want to start at 7 since.
Yeah, we'll start at 7 p.m.
Do you want to start with fire and ambulance and do highway after, or do you want to start with highway?
I think that's fair because they're volunteers and.
Yeah, we'll start at 7.
Okay.
So if we go 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock,
Okay.
it should be fine.
Okay. And then tentatively, budget adoption would be for November 17th.
Yes.
Because it has to be by the 20th.
By the 20th.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Good. Sounds like fun.
I will probably email all of you tomorrow just to get that straight again.
Got a good run coming up.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen a lot of each other. It's a lot of bonding time.
Does anything else go?
All right.
Next on the agenda is the Code Enforcement Monthly Report, and this is for September of 2021. The total fees collected are $20,735. There were 27 permits issued, 2 additions, alterations, or repairs to residential buildings, 25 all other permits, including pools, sheds, decks, plumbing, HVAC, etc., 27 certificates of occupancy, and 4 inspections of public assembly.
Our thanks to Greg Warner. He's a swell egg.
Has he interviewed anybody for
Not that I've heard of, no. No.
assistant?
Nope. Boy, I could go for water. Anything else from the board? No. I think we aired it out pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it was a cathartic evening. Anything from the public? Yes, ma'am.
So I will give you my email. It's J. Okay, so and then I guess it sounds like if the board discusses and approves the idea of a committee at some point, then that would go forward. But so email me.
In the very near future.
Okay.
We'll get it going.
Thank you.
Davis, did you have something? Okay, nice to see you at any rate. Nat. Well, Nat, is yours quick?
Yes.
Well, then you should go first, because Joe is never quick.
So the question to all of you is, what can we do to get the comprehensive plan approved at the November meeting? We closed the hearing, we closed the public hearing on the 2nd of September. I'm here to tell you that the committee has no substantive changes to make to the draft. I've been in conversation with Tara about the referral process out to the county, and I just wanted to understand whether that's done, and the clock is ticking. So they need to come back by
30 days.
When would they have received it?
That I mean, I can call them tomorrow and see if they received it, but it was sent out this week.
This week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
The next meeting is November 4th, so we should, I mean, the 30 days will be 3 days shy of that, but we
Right.
should hear from them by then.
We
Okay.
generally hear pretty quick.
Yeah,
Do you?
they're usually,
Okay, great. Well, I'm thinking that maybe.
especially with something like that.
And then local planning also.
Yeah, it was referred to local planning also. yeah.
So we'll look, if we get it back in the next 2 weeks, I don't see any reason why we couldn't tentatively
Yeah.
put it on the agenda.
Good. Good. No, I'm just. You're growing sick and tired of seeing me.
Nah, never.
But I think it would be good. That's Greg McCarver over in the corner. He's been another one of our members, and well, I'm going to go one step further and say, this new plan does have in it this notion about an annual review of the top priorities in the eyes of the committee, and I'm just wondering whether the plan wouldn't be adopted, but Greg and I and a few others could turn up during the budget hearings and mention a few of the items which appear to be the highest priorities and see what you think.
Sure.
Just kind of a dry run of the process.
All right.
I mean, I know you got all departments to hear from, and it's tough, and everybody's got lots of work to do, but I think it would be worth just our making a couple of suggestions about the things that could look like the highest priorities on the list.
Right. No, we're all for it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all your help with that. Tara, thank you for pushing that along to the county, and I'll stay after you a little bit just to make sure that
I would stay after the county.
Yeah,
To get
yeah,
those
no,
comments back
that
to
goes
us,
to
if
Putnam,
any.
that goes to the county planning department?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll find out who that is and stay on them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time.
All right. Joe, you're on. I'll hold you to it.
First off, I've been here a while, and I think the town hall looks great.
Thank you.
You did a nice job. And if you want a little help with the punch list, just a label on the restroom that says bathroom. I was fumbling around out there trying to figure out where to head. So I don't know who gets that memo, but it really looks great from the outside and looks great in the inside.
Long
So,
time coming.
It's worth it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No dry, I kind of missed the drafts.
It was plenty of fresh air.
So look, I had sent a memo to you guys, and I quite simply, I do not want to discuss the merits on any way, shape, or form of what's going on with the Garrison Golf Course and the Shakespeare proposal, but I would like to understand clearly the mechanics of what's happening, and I think that it's important that the public understand the mechanics, because as I believe, and it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I forwarded to the town board and the planning board an email this week that was announcing the celebration of the 2022 season and a cocktail party and everything going on this weekend up at the golf course. It's my understanding that the planning board has not even received a declaration one way or the other on the CEQA yet. So the idea that a celebration is taking place for the 2022 season when the planning board hasn't even begun to make a declaration. And so it's important, and I'm not even sure that I understand, but I understand there's the planning board, and then there's the town board, and that there's a process that needs to be followed. There need to be public hearings. Presumably there are time lags between some of these presentations and some of the hearings and then voting, and I don't see how this all happens, and so I had actually been very well assisted by the planning board clerk and the town clerk in information I've been trying to put together. And one of the things I've come across, which is a little disconcerting, is this idea of a special permit. And it turns out that Boscobel has actually pulled special permits for a period of years, which has allowed the Shakespeare Festival to operate down at Boscobel. And it appears to me that there's a possibility that the planning board could still be reviewing the application issues such as traffic and safety and all of the numerous issues that are associated with the application, and that a separate temporary permit could be requested, and that on a parallel track that the planning board could basically get cut off at the knees, and a temporary permit for operation next year could be issued for Shakespeare up at the golf course, which I think would be a really horrible way to get that thing started. So I'd like to understand what the sequence of events is going to be, how it's going to work, and how we're going to go through the planning board, the zoning, the town board, and whether or not the town board's even willing to, take a position that a special permit wouldn't be issued because it would be inappropriate to undercut the planning board.
Well, no one's looking to undercut the planning board. We're certainly not, because Shakespeare's been before the planning board for more than a year now. As you heard Councilman Flaherty earlier say that the secret process is underway, the Part 3 EAF, that our town consultant commented on 100 details involving seekers. So the process continues through the planning board. There will be need for a variance there, so it will also be going before the zoning board. It will also come before the town board. So there's a lot of process still to go. I'm not going to go through every single iteration of this, but what I would say is it's a public process. People can come to the planning board meetings. When the public hearing starts, they can be heard at that. There's been comment already, I know that. We received comments, there's been comments to the planning board meetings. I don't know, Bob, if you want to comment on this, it would be more appropriate.
Yeah, as I said, we've been planning board for over a year now so far, and we have AKRF that's involved as well. And again, I indicated that there was over 100 items that they referred back to that were waiting on comments back from the applicant, Shakespeare, and so forth like that. So it's we're not cutting any corners at all here. We're doing our process. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm just saying it's going to be a long process. I don't know anything about a special permit. That's the first I'm hearing about that. I do see what you're saying about things in the paper. You got people advocating for it and most sort like that, and it's kind of like putting a little hinder on the planning board to do their process. But I think everything is going the way it's supposed to be at this particular time. We've also had special meetings just for them to try to help it move a little bit faster.
I'm just concerned that, you know, perception is very important, and perception is generally, if you would ask 10 people on the street, 8 would tell you it's all done and everything's good to go. And Richard, you're 100% correct to say it's been going on for a year, but in fact, it was the 2nd of September that the most recent set of documents was filed, and that set of documents is substantially different than what has been previously submitted. And I've been to 2 separate tours of the Garrison Golf Club with the planning board, and both of those tours were effectively non-starters, because what's now in front of the planning board has nothing to do with what was presented on those tours. And so the idea that
Site visits, in all likelihood, there'll be another site visit based on this recent submittal.
What was actually one of my questions is, was there, and again, it's just, I'm not, and I really don't want to get into, and I'm trying not to get into the merits. It's really just what is good. So there will be more planning board hearings, there'll be more tours, there'll be public hearings. Then the town board has to have
The zoning board's got to refer it to the town board, because if there's going to be a zoning change, there has to be a law written for that. So
it seems like a lot to me.
it is a lot.
Well, especially when you know, I wouldn't say inundated, but I'm fully very aware of the push for this season to kick off less than a year from now. Probably what
I'm not going to mince words. I mean, I fully support the project. I mean, I think that the Garrison Golf Course, if it's going to be, if it's no longer going to be a golf course, it's going to be something. You know, they have rights. It's a big piece of property, an important piece of property in this town. Everyone wants to see it done right, but the owner there has rights to come and apply for just about anything he wants, you know, within the zoning, and perhaps even beyond our control if he was to go, you know, other routes. There are other things he could definitely go for. I know that, you know, it's a public process. There's an application before the planning board. It will ultimately be referred to the zoning board. The zoning board will come to the town board for a change. But, you know, at that point, I want to be beyond the board.
No, well, I'll miss you, but John, you know, good luck. But, you know, the fact is that yes, it is a piece of private property, but it is subject to, you know, planning, zoning, there are
as it is going through that process right now.
There are a lot of constraints, and again,
there are constraints, but there's also a planned development district that has been approved for an 80-room hotel with a conference center, with all the accoutrements that go along with that. There's a standing approval for that.
Which I think a lot of that would actually be quite good. I mean,
Sure. I mean, we desperately need accommodations in this town.
Right, so I'm not going to the merits, and I'm not particularly opposed to whole portions of what's going on, but I am opposed to the idea that this is a done deal when in fact it is so far away from being approved, and yet it's being so forcefully presented to the public is over and done, and come to the cocktail party.
I disagree with that. I don't think it's been presented that way at all. I think anyone who wants to inform themselves can go to a planning board meeting, can get up and ask a question. They want to come in and review any of the minutes. They're public documents. They're, you know, it's a public process. I understand perception, but, you know, we're in the regulation and administration business here. People want to come in. Democracy is like a big buffet. You can get all you want. You come in and have all you want, but if you don't want to come to the buffet, we're not going to deliver it to you.
No, I understand that. Well, I've tried, I mean, the planning board, the Zoom meetings I find very frustrating. I've tried to participate. I've actually been shut down. I've not been allowed to ask questions because, you know, oh, Mr. Regley's raised his hand. Well, we've heard enough. And you know, I don't find the process to be as collaborative as perhaps it could be, especially over Zoom meetings. And I was.
Well, I think right now we haven't come to the public hearing as of yet,
Right.
okay? But people are sending emails and letters of their concerns and so forth like that. I'm sure you probably sent one or two already, but anybody in the community can send a letter right now and voice your concerns about what may be transpiring or what's being planned up at the Shakespeare Festival in the Garrison Golf Course. But there will be a time when we'll have a public hearing. When that's gonna be, I can't tell you. It's probably a few months, at least a few more months down the road.
So I mean, if you're talking about 18 months worth of process, going to 3 different boards, all public meetings, thousands of hours of documentation, hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent on consultants, all paid for by the applicant, something is going on. I mean,
unquestionably, and that's part of the point, there's a huge amount of information, a huge amount being proposed. There's tremendous change. I think for people to wrap their heads around it and fully understand it is really important.
Yes.
And that gets back to, I'm repeating myself, but it gets back to the point of well, let's have a cocktail party Saturday night and celebrate on the site what we're going to be doing here next spring. That does not invite, that public relations directive does not invite feedback.
I'm just going to stop here because it's not our business to comment on celebrations or public policy, you know, somebody's perceptions. What happens with the Shakespeare Festival celebrating? They have a lot to celebrate. They have somebody who's going to give them a spot. I mean, that's worthy of a celebration. But our business is the policy involved and the process. And right now, they're fully adhering to all the standards and the process. You know, there's been nothing that's been requested. Bob, you can cite me if I'm wrong. Nothing that's been requested that hasn't been provided to date.
I'm not suggesting otherwise, and I'm starting to bear you out that this is taking too long, so I'll cut it off. All I'm saying is that I believe that the town board could be more public and just even somehow letting everybody know that this process is still afoot, that it's not resolved.
Every single month there's a report on it. Every month.
And it's been in the local papers as well. I mean, it's been public information for a long time.
You can't spoon feed people. I've been going through this for 20 years. I mean, it's like, I didn't know about this. Well, I'm sorry. Come to a meeting. Educate yourself. It's not our business to deliver this to your doorstep. You've been involved. You've been on the meetings. I'm not sure, you know, if somebody has a question, that question will be answered. It may not be answered to their satisfaction, but the question will be brought to the fore and answered.
Yeah, like I said, all the public comments have been coming in, but no one's responding to them at this particular time. Okay, they're all being taken in, the planning board reads them, everyone reads them, but no one's gonna sit down and respond to them at this particular time.
Well, there'll be a board response at the appropriate time during the public hearing process.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Anybody? Anybody want to say anything? Okay, great. Vacancy, 0. 0, we're a hero. Approval of vouchers, general.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I vote aye. Highway.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Continental Village Park District.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Continental Village Water District.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye. Jason, motion to adjourn.
Motion is made.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.